Okay, let's dive right in. For any of you leaders out there, you know the search for a competitive edge never, ever stops. But what if I told you that the biggest opportunity for growth isn't out there in some new market, but it's actually hidden deep inside your own company, just waiting for you to find it? Today, we're going to unpack a playbook that does just that, combining hard data with human spirit to unlock some serious hidden value. I know, that's a pretty bold question, but consultant Sabir Chowdhury argues that most companies are sitting on these huge problems they can't even see. And these aren't just costs. He calls them defects. Defects in revenue, in growth, in efficiency. The key, he says, is learning to see them not as problems, but as massive opportunities.
So just how big can these defects get? Well, think about this for a second. The heavy equipment giant Caterpillar, they were kind of stuck at $20 billion in annual revenue. Their goal was to hit $30 billion. Chowdhury came in and reframed the whole challenge. He didn't see it as a growth problem. No. He saw it as a $10 billion revenue defect. And that simple shift in thinking, that was the first step on a journey that helped them blow way past their goal.
And that right there, that's the heart of this whole philosophy. It's about looking at every single challenge, whether it's stagnant revenue like a Caterpillar or some massive cost overrun, and seeing it for what it is, a problem with a process. And the beautiful thing about a process is you can fix it.
You know, this quote, it seems simple, but it's incredibly profound. From marketing to HR to sales, you name it. Everything we do is a process. And whenever you have a process, you're going to have variation. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. The goal isn't to get rid of all variation. That's impossible. The goal is to understand it, to measure it, and to go after the negative kind that's costing you money and holding you back.
So, okay, how do you actually attack that variation? Well, that brings us to the very first pillar of this playbook, process power. This is the tactical how. This is where we move away from guesswork and hunches and get into a scientific, data-driven approach to fixing the business. Now, Chowdhury offers up one tool that he says should be your new best friend. It's called SIPOC. And his claim is, well, it's huge. He says this simple framework can help you solve up to 80% of your business's problems just by making the invisible visible. It just maps out how work actually gets done. Here's how it works. It's actually pretty straightforward. You map out the entire flow. You identify the suppliers, the inputs they give you, the steps in your process, the outputs that come out the other end, and finally, the customers who get those outputs. And suddenly, like magic, you can see exactly where communication is breaking down, where steps are getting missed, and where the real problems are hiding in plain sight. And this right here is the absolute foundation of Pillar 1. A tool like SIPOC forces you to stop relying on what you think is happening and instead to map what the data says is actually happening. It gets you out of the land of assumptions and office politics and into the world of cold, hard facts. And trust me, the results you can get from this data-driven approach, they can be absolutely staggering. Take this case study. An American automaker was facing a $2 billion recall cost and needed to find savings fast. So, using process mapping, Chowdhury's team asked a super simple question. Hey, when these parts fail, who's on the hook for it? And buried deep in the supplier contracts was the answer. Suppliers had to cover 50% of the cost. The problem? A broken process. Literally, no one was sending the invoice. By fixing that one single gap, they collected $900 million, just from their top 5 suppliers. Incredible, right?
Okay, so process is king. We get it. It's powerful. But Chowdhury started noticing something a little weird in his work. He could give 2 very similar companies the exact same process playbook and get wildly different results. And this led him to a really crucial question.
Why would one company put its tools to work and see, a pretty good tenfold return on their investment, while another one in the same industry would get a mind-blowing 100-fold return? The process playbook was identical. The data was there. The difference wasn't in the how, it was in the who. It was all about the people. And this, my friends, brings us to the second, and you could argue the more important pillar, people power.
It's this core idea that the best process in the world is completely useless if you don't have a team of people who are committed, who care, and who feel a deep, deep sense of ownership.
Child theory has a great name for this. He calls it the caring mindset. Think of it like a performance multiplier. It's the human element, the culture, that can take a 10x process and turn it into a 100x result. It really is the secret sauce. And he breaks this mindset down for us with a really easy-to-remember acronym, STAR. It stands for being straightforward and honest, even when the truth is hard, being thoughtful about your impact on others, taking full accountability for the results, and having the resolve to see things through no matter what roadblocks pop up. Now, to really get what he means by accountability, just listen to this story. Chaudhry was meeting with a CEO who wanted to hire him for a massive $2 billion project. He posed a really tough question. He said, suppose your boy and my boy are in life-threatening danger. Which one are you going to save? And the CEO naturally answered, well, I'm going to save my boy. And that's when Chaudhry delivered the real question. Okay, so this $2 billion project, is it your baby or is it my baby? See what he did there? He was forcing the CEO to take absolute, complete ownership. He wasn't just a hired gun to be blamed if things went south. The CEO had to own it. And that commitment, that was more valuable than any process chart.
Okay, now let's talk about thoughtfulness. There's this great story about the CEO of Kellogg's. At a dinner, Chaudhry just casually asks him, so how many baby boomers have you actually met this week? Now remember, baby boomers were their #1 customer segment. The CEO's answer? 0, not 1. He and his entire leadership team were totally disconnected from the very people buying their products.
And this just perfectly illustrates what Chaudhry calls leadership's #1 disease. Leaders get insulated. They get stuck in their boardrooms, they stop listening, they stop being curious, and they just assume they know it all. But true leadership, that requires the humility to admit you don't have all the answers and the thoughtfulness to actually go out and learn. So this brings it all together, what he calls the ultimate advantage. It's this realization that you can't get peak performance from just one thing. It's not process or people. You need two engines, process and people, and they have to be working in perfect sync. On one side, you've got your process power. That's your how. That's the systems, the data, the tools like SIPOC that give you a clear roadmap for getting better. But on the other side, you need people power, and that's your who and your why. That's the culture of ownership and care that makes sure the process actually gets executed with passion.
So this really leaves you as a leader with two critical questions to think about for your own organization. Number one, are you building robust, data-driven processes? And maybe even more importantly, number two, are you building a culture where every single person, from the front line all the way to the C-suite, treats the company's problems as if they were their own?
You know, in the end, Chaudhry suggests that business isn't just about profits and spreadsheets. It's a vehicle for human impact. By focusing on both the system and the soul of your company, you don't just unlock hidden value. You create a more fulfilling, more powerful environment for everyone. And maybe that's the ultimate competitive advantage.